Today's episode is brought to you by the Bible, the opium of the masses. Now, if you're like me, you probably always thought of this term as a slight against religion, but maybe it wasn't meant to be negative necessarily when Karl Marx first said it. Let's read it in context. What Karl Marx said was, "Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people." Marx argued that religion was constructed by people to calm uncertainty over their role in the universe and society. I imagine he took pity and empathized with the pious working class people. He was a champion for the working class, and he saw capitalism as a system that would further enlarge the gulf between the ruling and working class. I could point to the current new billionaire class and go off on that tangent for a long time, but we have to get back to the Bible and get to today's guest, a guy I've known since high school, a guy who was one of Gastonia's craziest drug-dealing maniacs, a guy I always got along with and I liked. He is now a preacher and using his extreme passion for good. Now, you know, if you listen to my podcast, that I'm not into religion and the Bible, and I've said negative things about it. But after sitting and listening to Jason's story, I began to see the good side that the Bible and religion had to offer. There are positives and negatives in all things. I thought about it in terms of psychedelics. You see, I remember reading about the Catholic conquistadors offering their Eucharist, which was their sacrament, wine and crackers, meant to represent the blood and flesh of Christ, to the natives in Mexico and trying to convert them to Christianity. But it wasn't working because the native sacrament was much stronger. They had peyote and psilocybin mushrooms. So the conquistadors outlawed the naturally growing psychedelics. These stories always infuriated me, but I need to stay on track. So I thought about the ineffectiveness of the Christian sacrament and then the ineffectiveness of reading scripture. When the Catholic scandal broke, I thought, to myself, if that book was truly a divine writing and led its reader right to the mouth of God, then how come so many of these priests who read from it daily were molesting children? How are so many church-going Bible thumpers in the South able to lynch black men and march in white hoods? And I always have attributed my spiritual growth to psychedelics, not the years of my youth I spent in church. I remember thinking, if we could spike the punch bowl with LSD at the church gathering, then those people could have a true awakening. But after sitting and talking with Jason, I realized that the Bible can lead people to a true spiritual awakening. I've also met people who took psychedelics and it didn't make them a changed or better person. Jason talks about eating 30 hits of acid, and he carried on his life of violence and selling Roxycontin. So because psychedelics worked for me, I became biased and self-righteous in my own beliefs. And don't get me wrong, organized religion isn't for me. I like meditation and psychedelics and hiking in the woods. That's the way I connect with the universe or my purpose or God or whatever words you want to symbolize the spiritual path. But I love when people find their spiritual path. And for a long time, I didn't include people finding Jesus or Muhammad or L. Ron Hubbard. But if someone uses the tools of a religious book, be it the Bible or the Book of Mormon, and they find happiness and are able to use this newfound happiness to be a force of good, then that is amazing. Jason's church has helped raise money and has been sending food to my people down in Fort Myers. And he has become a positive force in the world, and he found his path in the Bible. And my point of comparing the Bible to psychedelics is that whatever path you take towards spirituality or spiritual enlightenment, you have to do the work. You have to want the change. You have to be humble and show yourself mercy when you mess up and keep trying to move towards the light. I am in such a better place spiritually and emotionally than I was 20 years ago, but I still have a long way to go. 20 years from now, I hope to be twice as close to the light or God as I am now. So as most of you know, Hurricane Ian has my wife and I displaced. We are back where I grew up, staying with family. My close friend, Brandon, he flew in from Phoenix to visit his family and to see us. He and I hiked Crowder's Mountain, and then we went back to his hotel room, and Jason Robbins, we knew him growing up as J-Rob. He came over, and the three of us sat and recorded a podcast. Brandon read Jason's book on the flight and said he couldn't put it down. Jason's story was so incredible, and so Brandon had a lot of questions. It was so great to get to do this podcast. We all grew up in Gastonia. It was the Wild West on those streets. Drugs, guns, violence, we've seen it all. And like every small mill town in the 80s and 90s as the jobs moved overseas, there was a lot of violence, and most of it started at home and bled into the streets. And every town had its badasses, what we'd call the dudes you didn't want to mess with. The guys of legend. You know, you hear these stories. Yo, dude hit Paul so hard with the weed eater that it broke off on Paul's head. Paul didn't even fall down. Yo, this guy pulled a gun on him and he took it from him and beat him with it. Stuff like that. Well, J-Rob was one of those names of legend in Gastonia. And like most of those guys, the path wasn't leading to riches or a life of happiness. But he found God, and he has found a happy life now. He's like Dante. He had to go through hell to get to heaven. You can find his book on Amazon, From Prison to the Pulpit, From Dope to Hope by Jason Robbins. So let's cruise down Franklin Boulevard on the streets of Gastonia and smoke this blunt. Atmo out this car for old time's sake with Brandon and Jason Robbins.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
Drugs are menacing our society.
What are your thoughts on the drug problem?
I had a great time doing drugs.
So tonight, from our family to yours, from our home to yours, thank you for joining us.
This is the Peace on Drugs.
Right. Yeah, so Jason Robbins here. It's been, what, about almost 20 years probably since I've seen you.
It's been a hot minute, ain't it?
Yeah,
It's been a minute. Yeah,
definitely.
It is.
But we were just talking about fentanyl, the drug war. So yeah, fentanyl is what's killing most. I mean, most people are dying of overdoses. Fentanyl,
Yeah,
but my opinion about the whole thing is that it's the black market that is causing this. If addicts had legal access to the drugs they wanted to do, it'd be heroin, whatever it is, like they're doing in Switzerland, we can get people off these drugs if they can get the right therapy and get them the drugs they want safely while they're getting their therapy, versus what they're doing now is just go to the streets and good luck.
What's up, bro?
Yes.
Oh, you guys already started?
Yeah, we started talking about fentanyl. I was like, better jump in.
Hey, good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, brother. Yeah, we was talking about the war on drugs as far as fentanyl. You know, fentanyl, how it's killing everything.
We're just doing that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I remember back in the day we used to better smoke weed and pop pills and do whatever. I mean, you could take them without the risk of being killed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
literally, you know, you knew you was taking a Xanax, you taking a Xanax. You was taking a Roxy, you was taking a Roxy. Now, you know, now it's just straight fentanyl. You know, everything's just straight pill pressed.
Yeah, if you're buying drugs in the street, you need to
Yeah.
have naloxone on hand.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've been doing events as with the church down there. You know, with Kingdom Church, we do the and people we get a lot of criticism from it, but we give them test strips to test the drug.
Yeah.
They're gonna do the drug regardless. You know what I'm saying? I can't make you not do a drug, but at
Yeah.
least I can give you something to test it and see if there's fentanyl in it before you do it.
Yeah, the fact people try to outlaw test strips or naloxone or don't want to have access to these things, you can't get high on a test strip. You can't get high on naloxone. These are something that will save your life if you're out there buying drugs on the streets.
Amen. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, and most people with drug problems, if they don't die, they'll eventually stop using and get better if it doesn't kill them. But right now, it's so dangerous
Yeah.
that you keep them alive. That's the first step to getting them help. Is you can't help someone.
Can't
who's
help
dead.
somebody dead. That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yep. And now it's like you said, it's the fentanyl. It's just that's what's took over now. It ain't like when we was kids. You know. What I mean? It ain't like when we was kids. I mean, we was still in some stuff now. I mean, I remember what you were hearing. I remember doing the whip it things. It was like, hush, man, hush.
I still do whippets. You can buy them on Amazon.
I remember being in the house with you, and I remember that. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Me, I had an addictive personality. I just couldn't. I mean, like I'm balls to the wall. You know what I mean? I can't. I'm all in. You know how I was. You know what I mean? When I rolled with me and Paul, we would do acid, and then we like our competition was how many could we do in our mouth and do in our eyes. You know, and I mean,
shit.
like do 10 in our eyes, 10 in this eye, 10 in my mouth, and I'm like, dude, that's 30 hits of acid. And then Paul be like, I'll do 40. You know, and then next thing I know, we done all of it, and we out there, and that's the way we were. You know, it just didn't have no limits to it, and that's what took me so far with drugs. It's like the Roxy's, it changed my life now, because when I was staying in Florida, it was a pandemic of pills. You know, everybody down here was wanting Roxy's and all the things, but you know, I was going up there getting them from these doctors' offices and for $2 or $3 and selling them for $25, $30 a pop, and that was good money. And I was spending most of my own strip clubs and everything else, and more drugs that come with it. Everything comes with it. Not to glorify it, but that's what I was doing. But I couldn't stop it, you know. And then it eventually, where I didn't care about the money no more. I didn't care about the strippers no more. I didn't care about girls no more.
Yeah.
All I cared about was Roxanne. She became my girlfriend, and she took over me. You know what I mean? And that's what flatlined me. That's what I thank God for it, because it you know what, I got a brother of mine named Nick Greathouse. He does Christian music. He's a Christian rap artist, and he's got this song that said he had to kill me so I could live. And that's what God had to do to me. He had to flatline me, so then I could realize But I spent 9 months, being paralyzed. And
yeah, I read that in your book, man.
yeah, that was and you know how I used to be. You know what I mean? That man didn't. I don't like talking about him much, but my whole life it was about my name. My whole life it was about my name.
Yeah.
For what y'all didn't know is I didn't write in books, and I just now came to terms to talk about it. Is when I was a kid, I couldn't read. Couldn't read at all. Couldn't read nothing. You never knew that. Nobody did.
Yeah.
Couldn't read or write at all. And anybody try to teach me to read, I'd be like, nerds read. You know how we do, bash them real quick or something. To demonize anything that I didn't understand. And as a kid, I remember the teacher would call me up front and she would tell me to read, and I would. This is where fighting came in. And when it would come in, then they'd be like, remember the book? They'd be like, Jane ran to the store or whatever it was. I'd get up there and I remember going. And the little kids were like, he don't know how to spell Jane. And I'm like, okay, I see you. And then as soon as we went outside, I beat him up, you know what I mean? And that's when my mom was coming to get me from school all the time. And she was like, you always fighting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why I never told her, you know what I mean? I was so ashamed that I couldn't read, that I couldn't do it. And it just made me feel less than, made me feel stupid. And the devil just began to whisper and whisper and whisper. And it made me feel like this big. And so, and people, when we are hurt people hurt people. You ever heard that? Yeah. And this little boy locked himself behind walls. That's what he did. He locked himself behind walls and made walls around him. And all he knew was to fight anything to come near him, to be defense mechanism, because on side there was a hurt little boy on the inside that needed to be healed. You know what I mean? That needed to say. But people, man, the way we live is we don't want to be vulnerable with anybody and be like, man, that hurt me. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Man, I can't read. I can't do that. I can't. And because the world now, they're gonna make fun of you, or they'll or you can say, hey man, I'm struggling with drugs. You know what I mean? I take these drugs, man. I know I'm supposed to take them, but man, I can't take them like y'all. I snort every one of them. That's what I was doing. You know what I mean? I couldn't tell nobody, and if you was a part of me. If you knew Jason, then it didn't matter. I didn't care if you seen the destruction side, but I never wanted you to see a soft hurt side.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I always put these defense up.
And I see a lot of addicts, like my friend Matt that went through an addiction to fentanyl, he wouldn't want anybody to know, and he constantly lied about it. But it wasn't because it was because he was ashamed.
Yeah, that's right. Shame. That's right.
That's right. This means I'm weak and pitiful, and I don't want you to know. Yeah. It's hard to get help if you're not willing to put yourself, make yourself vulnerable, and put yourself out there and explain, hey, I got an addiction. That doesn't mean you're weak.
That's right.
We don't go through shit like that.
That's right. That's good, and that's the truth. That's the truth of it. Because when we don't want to make nobody, because especially as a man. Especially as a man, we don't cry. Yeah. Only punks cry. You know what I mean? We've taught that from, y'all know that. Y'all know since we, I mean, especially y'all Gastonia fellas, y'all know this. That's where we were. We don't cry. Suck it up, buttercup, let's get it done. You know what I mean? And somebody walking in and be like, man, I'm struggling, man, I can't read, man, I feel bad. We're like, well, suck it up. We all got problems. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the way street mentality is. Yeah. And all I had was street mentality my whole life. And I let that, and I really truly pushed everything away from me, and the streets are what accepted me. That was the only thing that accepted me. Everything else, it felt like it rejected me. So I had this name, J. Robbins. And what the crap, What
Rob
was that?
Bands, wild as the
Rob
Taliban.
Bands. Yeah, wild as the Taliban. This retarded J. Robs. I mean, Lord, this dude, what is it? And it was and he was brain dead in his mind, really, because it was, I don't know what it was, trying to keep up this facade of something that I was chasing, something that wasn't chasing me. You know what I mean? And everything that I thought, and it took prison. I mean, it did. It took prison. It took a lot of things in my life. I had a hard head, you know what I mean? Hard head makes a soft butt, what they say. And it took being in prison and sitting in there, and I was like, where everybody at? And I sold dope from the time I can remember. I remember selling pencils and stealing stuff at the store at the age of 7, 8, 9 years old in elementary school, selling stuff. You know what I mean? I go buy a pack of Now-Laters and break them down, and it started there. I mean, It started there. And next thing you know, that's what it took off at. And man, I just couldn't get away from it. I couldn't get out of it, and until God pulled the plug. He pulled the plug. I mean, he literally pulled the plug, and then I lost everything. Feds took everything that I had. I went to prison, took my freedom, and then when I took my freedom, I got into a prison cell, and that's when This book was written because I ran into a book, and that was the good book. I ran into the Lord's Word. When I ran into that in prison, I've been to jail in and out my whole life, and they would give me the Bible. And I had this saying, which y'all probably heard me say it growing up with me. I'll be scared, go to church about a dog. You know what I mean? You know how we do it. It's what we used to say. I used to live by that, you know what I mean? And here I was in and out of jail, and they tried to give me this Bible, and I'd get it, and I'd be like, man, I see, you read that, bro. I said, I guess you scared. You need to go on church service over there, buy your dog, can't get them in here, go to church service. I tell them that in jail. And then when I caught that bid of 25 years down the road, then I had another 60-year charge on me in South Carolina. I don't care who you are, even if you don't believe in God, you let bombs go off. You'll say, God, if you there. Yeah. My name is Jason Robbins. I live here, and if you're real, I need you to show up here. And where I met him, Matt, was on the run. Crazy as that sounds, I was running from all them sinners. I was like, man, chasing man. I said, you're going to have to be good at your job, police, because I promise you, you got this one with run. And I ran for 3 years, you know what I mean, running from the law. And I met him over a drug overdose. That's what happened. I got out. Me and Brent was going somewhere. We dropped some stuff off. And I thought Brent told on me for years. I wanted to kill him for years. Couldn't find out he did. He tell on me. The devil lied to you, bro. He lied to you. Brent didn't never tell on me. It was the people that I was buying from got caught, and they throwed it off on me. They made a deal with the state. Long story short, past is past. It is what it is. But it led me to where I needed to be. I got to a place where the drugs wasn't enough, money wasn't enough, dope was never enough. And God knew it, like, you're gonna kill yourself, boy. You don't understand. And then I got out. As soon as I got out I was in the county, and I was facing all the time. I lied and schemed my way out of there. They don't let you out of a state. If you're not living in the state, they don't let you out because you're a flight risk. I lied and had it worked out. Well, I dipped. And I went to go one more time. You know how that goes. One more time. One more never enough. And they followed me all the way down there. They followed me up. They knew everything that was going on. And I don't know where you're at spiritually, but I tell you, there is two voices. It really is. And my whole life, I'd heard a voice that I called God, and it wasn't God. It was Satan. I mean, it was the devil himself. I know it was. I rolled shotgun with him. You know what I mean? And I heard him. And they like the devil. They paint the devil like this monster, like these red pitchfork and his red suit, and he got the pointy head. You know what I mean? And he don't come across like that. He never with me. He come across to me as my homeboy, truly. Yeah. And when I was in the car, and I remember the police getting behind me, and I had all this dope on me, and I was like, damn, I ain't going back to jail. And I was with this girl, you read the story, So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I ain't going back to jail, and I'm telling this girl, I'll blow her brains out, you know what I mean, if you open these doors. So I'm holding my hand on the thing, and I'm trying to get the pill bottles like this. I mean, I roll a blunt with one hand. You know how I used to be. So I'm taking the thing, and I get it, and I take the pills, and I take the drink, and I squirt it, and I'm taking everything in the car, from all the pills to the coke. I swallowed everything. Cop busted in the car, and he puts me in the back, and I heard the voice. I heard him. He told me, go pump your stomach. He said, just lie. He gave me the whole plan. Go tell him you was in a car with a girl. You need to go pump your stomach out. Sounded great when I was in that car, so I swallowed everything. And then I remember sitting in that car, Redburn, and I looked over and I seen the police, he's digging through, and I'm like, ain't nothing in that car. It's all in my stomach. You ain't gonna get me. You know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking. You ain't gonna get me. And the whole time, the devil done got me. He really did. He done got me. He came to take my life, and he really did. I thought that I was with the police, that I was safe. I figured I was in a cop car. I mean, how much safer can you get, right? Might not want to be with them, but heck, at least I know they'll get me help. That was my whole thinking. And I never woke up out of that police car. They found me later on after the police, and they can say what they want to say, and I know I pray for you. They beat the H-E-double-L out of me, bro. I mean, they beat me bad because I was in perfect shape when I woke up. I mean, before that happened, I was that monster J-Robs, and I thought I was unstoppable. Bullets couldn't kill me in my mind. And when I woke up, man, I was beat all to pieces. My face was beat in. I had busted shoulders where they drugged me or whatever they done to me, but they had ruptured the disc all in my back. And that's what had happened. They crushed the disc in my back, and it pinched the nerves. And that's what caused me to be paralyzed. And that's what it caused it. And when the first time I got there, the first thing I wanted to do more drugs. And see, and that's why I have a heart for people with drugs. That's why I'm so animated about drugs, because when we first start taking drugs, man, we don't take drugs to say, man, I want to be homeless. I'm going to take drugs. I have to wake up every day to take them, to have peace, to have joy, to have sex. I mean, all these things go into drugs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just surrounds you. It encaped me, bro. It really did. And man, I didn't know how to get out. And so when I see people out there on these drugs, man, I have a heart for them. I know most people like, man, he's just a dope head, bro.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
But God gives second chances, you know what I mean? And he does, you know what I mean? But it just takes people, no matter where they stand, you got to understand that we all fall short of something. Ain't nobody perfect. And the only way you can help somebody is to be healed. I've learned this, you know what I mean? Because there was a time when I was trying to help people and I wasn't healed. And hurt people only hurt people, and people that ain't healed can only do so much. They can lead you to water, but they ain't gonna make you drink it, right? And that's what I see now in the drugs. Nowadays, the people that turn their back to drug addicts alone, and like they're just dope addicts, drug addicts, they're worthless. You know, they'll be in jail, they'll be dead, until it's their kid. Yeah. Now mama's like, oh hell, how am I gonna get Tommy off his dope? Yeah. You know what I mean? Where did this come from? Well, you abandoned him. You never spent time with him. You never talked to him. You never really, you just, the only thing you looked at what he did or what he didn't do. That's what I see a lot of families do now. They look to tell their kids what they did or what they didn't do, or what they're not living up to, right, Aaron?
They practice tough love. Tough love is
tough love.
That's an easy
Say it again, Aaron. Tough love is what?
Isn't love.
Is no love. Because and I'm with you on that 100%, because if you can't, man, love's everything. The Bible even teaches you that. It said if you ain't, he said you can go to church, be Billy Graham, you can, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, you can be whatever. You can do it all right. But if you didn't do it with love, he said you should have stayed home. You done it for nothing. The whole everything is built on love, and that's why I try to show so much love in this dope game, because man, you know, Ray Burn, man, you was head in it with me too. So was you, Aaron. I mean, we lived this. It ain't like we preaching to the choir. I mean, we lived this. We breathed this.
Yeah. I think that's why your story is so powerful, man. There's some in the book, I think it was early on, that really touched me. And I laugh. I got a dark sense of humor anyway, but he said, I was in such a dark place, man, that I told God my name just in case he didn't know it.
Yeah.
And that hit me because, you know, we've all been in a dark spot. And the people you're trying to help, you know, they're in a dark spot. You know, drug addicts. It doesn't get much darker than that.
Nah.
You know, so your book was great, man. I enjoyed it cover to cover on the flight. I didn't put it down once, man. I was like, and I always knew you were out there. I didn't know exactly how far you got out there, man.
Yeah, bro. Man.
I think that's why your story is so powerful, man. You came from the darkest spots you can come from, and now you've turned it all around, and now you're in a position to help people.
And you walking with me on the streets and being with me, I guess kind of seeing back as childhood, you see what kind of spirals.
It does.
And that's what I see with kids in general today, you know what I mean?
Well, when you're living that, you know, it's, as an adult, you know, as a man now, I can see that the way we grew up wasn't all right. It wasn't okay. There's a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of danger, you know. And it wasn't okay. But it's normal when you're living it every day, you know. You don't know any better. You're a kid. You know? So my heart breaks for those kids out there today, because they're facing challenges they're the same challenges that we face with the drugs, the alcohol, the women, or whatever. Now they got new stuff that we didn't have.
I've said if fentanyl had been in the streets when I was growing up, I wouldn't be here.
Come on, and I said the same thing. I said if there was fentanyl when we was kids, I'd have been dead. Or if meth would have been rapid.
Yeah, I know meth wasn't a big thing in Gastonia.
No, they had they done the what they call it clear, but it was, I guess that was meth. But I remember a couple of dudes. You know, I sold coke to everybody, so I would take it to this dude, and he wanted to drop something off one time, and I remember them having a light bulb, and I never forget. You know what I mean? Ain't it something though? I walked in the house, and I'm the biggest dope addict there is. You know what I mean? Like I can't go to sleep if I got 10 Roxys beside my bed to snort before I wake up in the morning. And this dude's like just a trash can for dope. That's what I was. And I walk in the house, and these dudes are in there with a light bulb. And I'm like, man, what you got a light bulb for? You know, like, I said, man, get your piece of tin foil and make you a pasty. I thought that's what he was doing, you know what I mean? He was like, nah, man. He said, we doing the clear. And I said, clear? And he showed it to me. It was like this glass. And that's what it was, I guess. I'm guessing it was meth. And I remember them smoking it, like, you know, chasing the dragon the way we did with Yak. Yeah. But, and I'd never seen that. But now I told him.
Once in Gastonia too in a light bulb. That's the only time I saw it. And that's why I probably never did it. And then later I was like, I like sleeping too much. They'd be like, oh, I did that when I was up for a week. I'm like, that don't sound fun to me.
You was with me, because that's what I told the dude. He was like, man, this right here, bro, that coke ain't got nothing on it. And I'm like, well, why are you buying it? You know what I mean? He was like, I need to come down a little bit. And I was like, dang, what? You know what I mean? I'm like, you bought my coke to come down? You know what I mean? I was like, what? I thought he was crazy. And he was like, man, you take one hit of that, bro, you'll be up 3 days. I said, bro, I don't, you know me, I like downers. I didn't like the uppers like that.
Yeah.
And coke, I was so, I don't know what ADHD they would call it. I take coke, it make me sleepy. It make me yawn. You know what I mean? It had done me the opposite. I truly only like cocaine because the girls liked it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have it. That was all it was about. That was the truth of it. Did you know that?
Yeah, that was crack the same way. I don't know. The first time I smoked crack was, I think it was with, I don't want to name names, at the house near Boykins.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, man, that was a fun rush. I actually enjoyed that. I enjoyed crack.
Yeah, I did it too. It got me like, I smoked crack, I did it too.
Only because it was shorter lived too. It was like fun, but then you don't have to constantly, like, cocaine I'd chase all night and then be up, and the sun's coming up, and I hated it.
See, the crack done me the wrong way then, because they would hit it one time, and I was like, man, I'll rob that dope, man, take him to him. You know what I mean? They were like, I remember they was like, bro, you ain't going to go rob my dope, man. I get all of it, dog. He was like, nah. So I figured out real quick to never touch that stuff again because I liked it way too much. I could see how it takes people's money. I mean, I still got like a storage of Nintendos and all kinds of stuff people stole from bring it to me to trade in. I gave it all to my little boy, and he was like, we don't play that stuff. You know what I mean?
Like
what is that? You know, that's what it is, Atari to him. He's like, hey, what is that? I just laugh. I'm like, I don't know. Give it to somebody. Hallelujah. Yeah. What do you do with it, you know?
There's something else in the book I want to ask you because I read it and I was like, I got chills, man. That's what I was telling you on a little Facebook post. You got to explain to me and anybody listening about the guy that there was a dude in jail with you. Mm-hmm. He said God talked to him to come find you in jail. And he took his license plate off his car. Yeah. Got arrested. Yeah. Just to deliver a message to you. Yeah, that was the craziest thing ever, man. Yeah, I read that and I was like, man, only you could deliver that to me, and I believe it. I was like, man, I tell you, it's in cold chills to this day. I remember him. You know how I was being like, even my whole life, I would always, if you mess with I hated bullies. I hated a bully. And I would always beat up a bully. I would look for a bully to fight. Or somebody thought they was a real tough guy. Yeah. I wanted to fight him for one reason. Not to show them I was better than them, because I hated bullies, because I was watching my mom and me be beat my whole life. And that's what I seen in them. And I'm like, oh, you one of them? I'm going to get you. And that's what was in my mind. Well, this guy was like, you could tell he'd never been to jail before. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he was sweet-looking, older black gentleman. Really like a pawpaw. You're like, man, what you doing in here, you know? And I seen him when we come in, like at the line or whatever, we was getting some mail or whatever it was. I don't remember what we was doing down there, but I remember seeing him. And we called eye attack. And he was looking for me. He was like he was looking for me, kept looking at me. I'm like, dude, what you keep looking at me for? In my mind, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. We end up, when they signed me in this bunk, they put me on this top bunk, and he's on this bottom bunk on the other side. I'm like, I'm over here, he's over here. And I'm up here reading the word. And because I done found the Lord in this, I already been crippled. Lord done healed me from, I went never supposed to walk. I heard the voice of God say, get up. And you know the story. I got up, and God started letting me walk. Ended up going down the road and everything. Because the Bible teaches, says you reap what you sow. I sowed a lot of bad ground. Y'all know that. And I had to reap what I did. You know what I mean? I wouldn't know. You know, because, I found Jesus, you ain't got to pay for none of it now. Yeah. Nah, you broke the law, nigga, you going to go to jail. You know, you going to face this. And that's where I was at with it. Anyway, I'm sitting up on this bunk, and this guy's down there, and he's watching me read, and this is what he was doing. He was doing this. Just straight up looking at me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and I'm laid up on the bunk like this, and I'm like, you know, he's like, what are you looking at?
Yeah,
we gonna fight, or what are we gonna do?
But he had like the peaceful look. It wasn't like a like you got a problem look. You know what I mean? It was a peaceful look, like your papa looking at you. Yeah. And I was like, you know, that's what I did. Put my hands up, like, what's up? You know, what's going on? Not like in an ugly way. You know, like, what's up? You know, I was like, what's going on with you? Why you keep looking at me? Yeah. And he was like, how long you gonna keep reading? How long you keep reading that word? And I said this, I got to keep reading. I forgot all what I told him. And he started telling me, he said, can you talk to me? Come talk to me. And the whole conversation, I don't know if I recorded all of it in there, but I'll tell you, he sits me down and he starts telling me, he said, you're in a dangerous place. And I said, we all right. I said, I'm used to this. I thought he was talking about jail. He said, no, your light that's in you is flickering. Your light's about out. And I said, what you mean my light's about out? He said, you ain't even got a pilot light left. He said, your light is flickering. Your light's about to go out. He said, God wants you to shine, boy. God wants to use you. And I was like, and when he started talking to me about the Lord, he got my attention. You know what I mean? I said, yeah, I don't know how he's going to use me here. You know, I'm like, I'm in jail. How you going to use me here? And he was like, he see me, I go back up there and start reading. Long story short, he started telling me things like, it was crazy. He started telling me like, people might think I'm out there. He can say whatever they'll say. He started telling me about movies. He said, like, you watch these movies. He said, you see the movies, everything in the movies is really real. He said, they throw it off so it was not real. So they make it not real. He said, like Transformers. He said, aliens are real. He said, they demonize them, act like they're not real. He said, but they out there. He said, they know that. And which now they say that they are.
Yeah.
Before they, anybody said they were from, knew about, then they put us, they were like, that little trailer park boy, they run into the run into the aliens. Remember how they used to do? That's what the world does this. And he started telling me, I was like, yeah. And he really got my attention with that. Then he started going on, like these phones. He started telling me about these phones. And I didn't know about no iPhones and none of that then. I didn't see those then, you know what I mean? And he was like the phones, the iPhones, and these phones are going to be whatever. He said, they already got the iPhone 30. They already got it out. They just feed it to you Christmas. He said, like the new games. They got a PlayStation 30. He said, but they give you the PlayStation 3, the 4, the 5, and they'll give it to you every year because they do it right near when? Right near Christmas, right? Yeah. He said, they got this figured out, so they take all the people's money. He started telling me, I said, yeah, trust me, you ain't talking to the right one because I know the government's crooked. And that's what I told him. And I still believe they are. Leave it there. So we'll leave it there. But anyway, he starts telling me that I needed to go preach the gospel and telling me this. And this goes on for like a day or two. And I just read. I wouldn't do anything. I just read my word. And he was like, one day, last day, was like, come here, my time's short. I got to go. He starts telling me he's got to go. He's getting ready to leave. And I'm like, where you going? Where you going? We in here. He was like, I'm in here because I want to be in here. He said, the Lord told me to come here, and it's you that I was looking for. And I was like, this dude's tripping.
Yeah. What else you gonna say to that?
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking, dude. You retarded in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, dude, we was cool till now you start lying to me.
Yeah.
And he was like, he said, no, I'm telling you, I'm in here. He said the Lord spoke to him and told him to take the tag off his car. And that there was a man in there, his light was about that he was showing to him. That God was going to use him in a major way if he would let God light the light. I'm listening to him. And the last day he walks up to me and he tells me, he says, you need to quit reading that word so much. You need to get down there and speak the word. The men need light in here. Go down there and be the light to them. And he said, tomorrow I'm going home. I'm going to go and call my wife. And I'm going to tell her, it's time for me to go. You either going to receive it or you're not. In a nutshell. And I'm like, I said, what you want me to do? Walk down there and say, hey, I'm preaching a sermon. I was being a little smart butt then. He was like, nah. He said, just put the Bible down. Go down there and sit down. And the Lord is going to bring them to you. And I'm like, and I was doing it truly, Rayburn, to be a smart butt.
Yeah.
I grabbed my Bible and I said, let's go see how this works. Just to go show you to shut up and leave me alone. So I went down there and I sit down on the table and I opened up my Bible. That's all I did. And 1 inmate, 2 inmate, 3 inmates. And I'm like, and I can look, I can still see him standing there. He was on the top pier. And he was looking and he went, just nodding his head.
Yeah.
And he walked on back to his seat. And I started teaching right there the Word of God. And man gave his life to Jesus. And I'm like, man, that man, I'm boosted. I come back up and I said, man, that boy gave his life to the Lord. He said, a lot more going to give that life to the Lord if you let him use you. Your light has got to grow. And the only way it's going to grow is you let it shine. He started telling me these things. And he said, and I'm like, I appreciate the pep talk and get me going, you know what I mean? But I'm still at the same time, Aaron, I ain't going to lie to you. I'm thinking you're full of crap. You didn't take your tag off the car. Nobody goes to jail on purpose. I mean, where are you from? Police got to catch me from where I'm from. And you know what? And so next day he goes up and they get up, we get up, and he tells me, he said, come on. I get up with him, I said, what's going on? He said, come on, I'm going to call my wife. He made sure that, man, you in jail, you got to call, you got to get genetics. You know how that works. So he calls her, and he was like, this was his conversation. He said, hey, hon. He said, yeah, I found him. I'm listening now. You know what I mean? He said, I found him. I told him what God told me. He said, go ahead and bring my ID up here and tell him who I am. He said, it's time for me to go. Still puts cold chills on my body.
Yeah, me too, man.
Puts cold chills all over my body. And his wife got on the phone with me. She said, I hope you receive what my husband has done for you because God has a plan for you.
Wow.
And that's all she says. Put my husband back on the phone.
Yes, ma'am.
I was speechless. I walked back up to my thing and I'm like, well, we're going to see how this pans out. Because, you know, in jail, we're going to see right there on the spot. Man, it wasn't like less than an hour later, they tell him, roll it up, roll your bed up, come on, pack it up, time to leave. And he walks by me and said, let your light shine. He said, let your light shine. And I was like, man, and that was it encouraged me so much. And I was like, because I was locked in, but I realized they locked me in, but they couldn't lock Jesus out. God would use people. And I was like, man, you ain't forgot me. You know what I mean? I said, what? Because I was facing a lot of time. I was facing 60 years down there.
Yeah, 60 in South Carolina, right? And then another 25 in Florida or something like that.
And in the state of South Carolina, I was not guilty, truthfully. I'll tell you. Florida, I was guilty as charged. South Carolina, I didn't do any of those things. And I walked into it and I had God brought you ever heard of this? The church raised money to get me a lawyer.
Really?
Church pastor named Pastor Kerry Caldwell come in. I gave my life to the Lord, and he showed up. And I remember they called my name, and I went into the room, and he knocked on the glass, and I had my head down, man. I didn't found out how much time I got, and all I kept thinking about my daughter. You know what I mean? I was like, damn, you suck, boy. You just threw it away. You'll never, ever see Peyton again. You know, my mind, I was like, 60 years, I'll die here before they even transfer me to Florida. You know, I'm thinking crazy. I'm thinking I'm going to kill myself. I ain't doing no 75 years in prison. Y'all lost your mind. I'll kill myself first. That's where I was at.
Yeah.
I was the way the pastor come in, he tapped on the window, and I looked up, and he put his hand to the glass. But he had his hand like this. He put his hand to the glass, and I put my hand down. He said, God ain't forgot you. He said, we raised the money. He said, we're gonna help you fight this case. And we went into it, and he asked me, he said, did you do this? Tell me the truth, son. I said, I've done a lot of things, Pastor, but I didn't do this. I never sold to a minor in my life. Ever have I done nothing like it. Never would I. They charged me with 27 accounts to begin with. They dropped it down to 21 accounts, trying to get me to swallow it. 21 counts facing 3 years on each one of them for distributing the minors.
They wanted you to sign up.
Yeah, they wanted me to sign it. And I was like, I already knew the system, so I didn't sign it. I knew I didn't do it. And the lawyer, long story short, walked in the courtroom. I never even walked in the courtroom, bro. That don't happen. I didn't even walk in the courtroom. I was sitting in the holding cell on the outside of a courtroom. My lawyer went in there and told him, can you point Jason Robbins out in this courtroom? I wasn't even in the courtroom. All 21 of these kids, one of their buddies had the dope, and they didn't want to tell on their buddy. So they wanted to point at me because they already found out that I was a fugitive on the run. So he's like, he's already charged with dope charges. He's a trafficker. Yeah, he's the one. Of course, it got to be, right? But it really wasn't. I was there to pick up my cousin. That's all I was doing. I literally walked into a party to pick my cousin up. Wasn't doing nothing wrong. Police busted in. Wrong place, wrong time. Real truth. Long story short, they say kids start confessing. Yeah. We don't know what he looked like. And he said, how you going to tell me you bought, man gave you dope? You don't know what he looked like.
21 times, right?
He's like, you know what I mean? You get ready to give this man 60 years in prison. I need you to point him out. And they said, well, we don't know where it came from, and we really don't even know Jason Robbins. Then the truth came out. There was one of the other homeboys or whatever it was. They didn't want to tell on him. And so my lawyer walks in the back room, and he said, you're getting out of here. He said, they dropped all charges on you. And I'm like, my God, Lord done showed up. Now I'm going to Florida. So my mind's really shot out. And that's when, when I was going to write the book, I wasn't even going to write it. I was like, man, who in the world wants to hear my story? You know what I mean? That's what the devil tells all of us. Who wants to hear your story? And that's what happens to these guys on the street that are on these drugs. That you can't be enough. That you're a dope addict. You'll never be enough. This is where you'll die at. You know what I mean? And that's the mentality they carry. And I had it until I started doing the thing with God. Even when I was preaching and doing things with God, And I was like, man, my whole thing was I wanted to see everybody get hope where they at least went on dope. You know what I mean? They found Jesus and found something, you know what I mean? Something better than what they was in. And that's where it came from. And I run into a young man named Brian Trejo, which is #1 Christian artist in the whole United States of America right now. He wasn't at the time. He came to the church and he starts talking to me. I just loved him because what he spoke, it was me. You know how like Tupac used to talk to us? This is the Christian Tupac.
Right.
I mean, really is. I mean, this man with the trigger man, that's what he used to call him. That's what he went to prison for, was they killed his brother, they shot them all up, got out, starts preaching the gospel and reading, and I mean, he got beautiful music, awesome artist. #1 says enough, I guess, right? Yeah. But he comes in and tells me, like, me and my wife, Brittany, was sitting with him, and I'm excited to see him, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is the dude I love to hear him preach, and da-da-da-da-da. And I want to hear about him, Aaron. I don't want to talk about me. I want to hear about him. Yeah. And my wife, you know how Brittany is. You know, Brittany starts telling him about her husband. Like, you don't know half the my husband been through. He did it, and I'm like, shut up. I'm trying to listen to what this man talking about. Be quiet right now. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're with Brian. Hush. I want to hear what this man got to say. And Brian like, no. I want to hear her. So he listens. And then when she gets done, he looks at me and said, write the book. I need you to write the book. And she said, tell him. You know, your wife throw you out there too, you know. She's like, tell him. And I was like, I didn't try to write that book 2 or 3 times. And I said, man, ain't nobody want to hear that. He said, why you going to keep listening to the devil? He said, write it. So I wrote it. And, man, since then I wrote it and I put it in the prisons. Every time I sell a book, it goes into a prisoner's hand. And, man, like I go to the prison every Thursday to preach. And, man, it's crazy, man, when you walk into a prison cell and you see inmates walk up to you. You know, I ain't going to say inmates, brothers in Christ that just done some poor decision. I don't like calling them inmates. They're holding my book up on the glass, slamming it to the glass. Bam, bam, slamming it out. Let us out. They get down there and they're like, man, you gave us hope, brother. I ain't signing none of these papers, man. They get there like, you know, we fight the good war, you know, they with it. And I'm just like, man, it's overwhelming, you know what I mean? Because then I'm thinking, man, if you only knew that I couldn't even read or write, you know what I mean? That's why when I see something like this, it makes me cry sometimes, to be real with you, you know what I mean? Because I look at it and like, man, that was a time I couldn't even read or write. And that's how I learned to read and write, was YouTube. It sounds crazy, right? I take YouTube and get it out, and I would read the Bible while it read. And I would do it over and over and over and over until I remembered the Bible. And then the next thing you know, I could remember how to read. Yeah. I was asking God to help me to read, and that's how He used me to teach me. So now, you know, I see these kids. You got kids on the streets out there right now that don't. Like I ran into a guy 2 days ago, living in the street, 22 years old, living in an abandoned house. He's on dope. He's out there, and you know, and me to jump out and be like, hey, come on, man, Jesus gonna help you. Say the way. That ain't the answer. All the churches hear me. That is not what you do. You don't jump out and beat them in the head with a Bible. You don't do that. You're not gonna win them. You win them by love. Say, hey, man, you hungry? You hungry? I ain't telling you to give your wallet to him, but I'm telling you, you're hungry, feed him. Yeah, you're thirsty, give him something to drink.
Meet him where he's at.
Yeah, meet him right there where he's at, and let him know where you used to be. Yeah. See, that's our problem as a man, and we don't want to show our vulnerability. We don't want to show our scars. We don't want to show our shortcomings. We don't want to show this thing. But I've learned now, I don't care. I tell you, I'm the biggest head you ever seen in your life. I was trash. I was this. I am from the trailer park. I put my boy Eminem said, I am for all these things. I tell you everything about me, so you ain't got nothing to say about me.
Yeah.
And by me doing that, now they're like, you ain't like no preacher I ever seen. I like, praise God, I never want to look like one either. Yeah. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to look like a preacher with suit and tie. If God wanted me to wear certain clothes, He'd have put them on me when I was born. Right? Yeah. I believe what you want to wear and what you want to do that's what you should do. And I think the world gives us a facade to everybody. You got to look a certain way, talk a certain way, you know,
and hide who you really are a lot of times. And that's why, like, when people think of a drug addict, they have this horrible idea that, well, once you're a drug addict, loser, lost cause, because the people that get out of it don't talk about it and act like it never happened. Yep. So you don't realize there's people that got through that are doctors, lawyers, pastors, all these things that but most people they won't say, hey, I was an addict, I did this. They just don't talk about it.
That's right. And you know, Aaron, the truth of it is a lot of them, doctors, lawyers, pastors, and everything else, are still dealing with addiction, but they know how to live in addiction and cope with addiction. If you can't go to sleep with something, you're addicted to something. Yeah. If you can't wake up in the morning without something, you're addicted to something. That's just the truth of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was addicted to porn. I was addicted to all kind of things. You know what I mean? And it's even in our minds. Sometimes nobody wants to tell what's in their minds because our mind's crazy. Y'all know that, Brandon. I know your mind too, boy. Brandon shot out there too. He believed like me. I know. He's shot out there sometimes. We go left field, you know. And I was talking to a pastor friend of mine. I don't care who's hearing it the other day, and I was like, man, I said sometimes, man, I said I can be, you know, with my wife or something, and then be thinking about a porno. Where'd that come from? And he said, you think you're the only one that's ever dealt with that? I said, yeah. Y'all look perfect.
Yeah, right.
He said, ain't nobody perfect, they lying to you. Yeah. He said, they know how to, some of the women, they know how to paint their lipstick on with their smile. You know, a man knows how to put the weight on his shoulder and never tell nobody it's heavy. They don't want to tell nobody because then it makes them look a certain way. You know what I mean? How could you tell your wife? Let's say you was messing with pornography. Let's say you go back and you go tell your wife, you know, I was in there looking at porno before I come in and mess with you. And she going, oh, you got to have a porno to mess with me? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it ain't nothing about that. It's just what was wired in your mind. And if you never deal with it, it's never going to be healed. So I learned to just deal with it all. Lay it out there. This is what it is. I know I'm a wreck. Hallelujah. I don't know how we're going to fix it, but this is where we at. And once I did that, it's just like God started putting things in order. You know what I mean? Started putting things in order. And I still ain't by no means arrived. I still struggle with a lot of things in my mind. I struggle with a lot of things. And I just take it day by day. And I don't believe once an addict, always an addict. And I believe that kind of thinking is what keeps them addicts.
Yeah,
I do too. I think it's like with AA where they say if you have one drink ever, you'll be right back in your addiction. If you believe that, it'll be true.
That's right. If you, especially speaking and talking those things, it's gonna come to pass.
Yeah.
That's right. And there you are. You know, and here it is. And you're wondering why. It's because the things are teaching you and going on. And I remember going to the AAs, and I ain't bashing them, but I mean, they didn't get right. I'm just saying like it is, you know. I know you're trying to do good, but maybe it needs a real addict to teach it. I'm just saying. But talking about every time I go to a meeting or something, all you do is tell me about all the times that I got high and all the things. Guess what I want to do when I leave there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you want to get high when you leave there. You know what I mean? I think you got to change your mind. The Bible says change your mind, new mindset.
Yeah.
So I learned to talk about the new things. Seldom do I talk about the past. And,
you go in there, the guy says, my name's whatever, I'm an alcoholic, sober 30 years. I'm like, I'm sorry, if you haven't had a drink in 30 years, you're not an alcoholic.
That's right.
I mean, you might have had a problem 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You definitely did, I'm sure, but come on.
Yeah, and you know, and even with like I've had some guys walk up to me and they were like, "Man, Pastor, is there anything wrong with me drinking a beer every once in a while?" And I'm like, and you know, and then they'll say, "Well, the Bible said drink and be merry." And I say, "Well, the Bible says a drunken will not enter the kingdom of heaven." They say, "Well, there's a difference in a drunken and a person just drank a beer, right?" I say, "Absolutely, it's the truth." They can say what they want to say, demonize me however they want to do it, but that is the truth of it. Some people are wired like me. We can't have a drink. If you give me a drink, I'm gonna stop by the liquor store every day, and I'm gonna have a case
all
of
the drinks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have everything, and then I'm gonna get me a pill. Then I'm gonna get me I won't just buy a dime bag. Yeah. I will buy a quarter pound. You know what I mean? That's what I'll do.
Alcohol's the gateway, the actual real gateway drug, man.
Alcohol's always the gateway.
It is legal on every corner. Because we started drinking before we started smoking, then we started drinking and smoking, then we started doing it. That's what it does. It unwinds.
You gotta feed that monkey on your back, man.
So I hope that somebody hears this podcast, hearing what you're doing, man. I honor you, brother, for what you're doing and giving hope to people out there on dope, because a lot of times they lose hope, and once you lose hope, you lose everything. Yeah. You accept it, and that's where you are. And I can relate. I've been there. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm always, this is what I am, and so I might as well be the best at what I am. Trash. And that's what my mentality was.
What you mentioned in the book, man, which I've always admired you, even back in the day when we weren't doing well, just because you were unapologetically who you are. You were back then, you weren't using your gifts for good. And you're that now, and now to see you using them for good is, I respect that. But what you say in the book, man, it's not where you start, it's where you finish.
That's right.
Yeah. To see you right the ship, man, and obviously you've had some help with that.
I wrote it. I wrote it, and they had to edit me a lot. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, let me help you out here. You know what I mean? Hallelujah. Lori Coker, give you a big shout out. She helped me a lot. Lady at my church, she really helped me out a lot. She was like, Pastor, I know exactly what, because she knows me.
Yeah.
She said, I know exactly what you were trying to say. And when she said, I said, you know what I said, ain't it? She said, yeah, close.
I love it, man.
Yeah, man. So that's I mean, there's a war on drugs, man. And the truth is, we need a war on the government because that's one feeding it to us, brother.
Yeah, it's a war on the people, and the only way you're gonna get people help is if you help them.
Yeah.
You can't punish on the drug problem. I know they try to say, well, what about the people selling? Well, a lot of people selling are the users who have to pay for their addiction, so they start selling.
That's right.
It's a losing battle, so you got to figure that
That's right.
shit out.
And what's the difference in them selling dope and you selling them methadone?
Oh yeah, and not,
Because they legal drug dealers? I'm just saying.
they are. And also, I mean, alcohol prohibition didn't work. It
Yeah.
was created a lot of problems. Now we've legalized it to the point where it's almost, if you tell people you don't drink, they think something's wrong with you. It's like,
Yep.
it's the worst drug that's known to man, and
It
it's
is.
legal and it's sold in every corner. But if someone has a heroin addiction, you're gonna arrest them.
Yep.
It's hypocritical.
It really is. It all the way around. You know what I mean? You can do so much of this, but you can't do none of that. You know what I mean? And that's the mentality that they have because the man says this is legal, that ain't legal. You know, I think everybody should have the freedom of choice, whatever they want to do, point blank. And I don't want nobody doing no dope. You know what I mean? But people are gonna do what they want to do. That's the fact of it. And I do see your point, Aaron. A lot of things. I mean, at least if they getting something, at least it ain't getting poison in it.
Exactly, and also a lot of people suffer childhood trauma and things that led them to addiction. And if they could get the drugs that aren't going to kill them, and then get some help, we can get them off drugs
Yeah.
and get them to have a happy, fulfilling life.
Yeah.
Versus if they're, like you said, you can't fix somebody if they're dead. And
That's
what's
right.
happening. We're losing kids. 100,000 people in a year died of a drug overdose. It didn't have to happen. Switzerland had 0
Yeah.
because they had illegal access to these drugs, and it's a sad situation that we've created for ourselves.
It truly is, and I seen that point you just made. Is I seen yesterday that said the statistics, like Americans' lifespan has went down dramatic. Like their lifespan has went down dramatic.
Yeah, it has.
And you know, and we can point it at the dope all we want and alcohol, and that has a major part of it. But man, them sodas and everything else too, they feeding them and everything they putting in the food and everything else. Man, I mean, they're poisonous. I mean, it
Oh, yeah.
really
We
is.
have obesity problems, diabetes problems, all these things because we don't talk about our health and nutrition and things that we
Yep.
need in our diets. It's all about money. These companies making money selling. You can
Bigger the better.
Oh yeah, you can be on welfare, and I'm not hating on people on welfare at all, but I'm saying you can be on welfare and go buy the shittiest foods that aren't nutrition, and
Yep.
and those foods are going to keep you down and feeling depressed because they're not
Yep.
they're not proper nutrition that your
That's
brain
true.
needs.
That's the truth. And then the food that is good for you costs 3 times more than the food that ain't good
And that's
for you.
another problem. Yeah, organic foods and
Yeah.
all these. Yes,
It's
super
crazy.
expensive.
It is.
Yeah, being health conscious is an expensive hobby to have.
It is. My wife is, and I didn't know nothing about that. You know what I mean? I'm like, Coca-Cola 32 ounces, they're going to give me 44 ounces. You know, like, hallelujah, give me that. You know what I mean? I thought the bigger the better, you know? And that's what we're taught, right? I mean, and it's the same mentality as the world. You look at the girls, you know, they look on Facebook and they see, you know, or YouTube or whatever, Instagram, they look, she looks like this, and that family looks like that. And most of them is fake book, and it really ain't.
Yeah.
It really is. It's fake as all get out. They take the pictures, they put these filters on them and make everything look the way it wants, and then they look like, oh man, everything's peaches and creams and ice cream.
Yeah.
Man, and then they feel like they don't live up to that. And
No,
then
well, there was a story on Instagram with this one mom went to the pool with her daughter, set everything up, took pictures of what they were doing at the pool real fast, put everything up and left. It's like, so your story, the life you live isn't even real. You're just, look what we do. Like, no,
Yeah.
you're not even doing that.
yeah, just to get a picture, get a thumbs up.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
You're just getting the
I
highlights.
get it either.
Yeah, that's all it is, man. Getting highlight reel. That's what
That's
it
it.
is. That's all it
That's
is.
all you're getting. I mean, even me, you know,
Yeah.
I ain't putting the 3 a.m. bourbon session on
Yeah,
Instagram, you know.
I waking up pissed off and gotta go head this way. You know what I mean? It's we all get there, man. And it's because we, like you say, we don't want to show our vulnerability, and I think that's what we as, you know, I believe as all true brothers in Christ, and I believe all men in general need to learn to be vulnerable, to show things. You know what I mean? Because that's the only way we help somebody is to show them, look, man, I was there too. You know, because I got off of dope, don't mean you forget where you come from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You forget where you come from, and then act like they this and that. What good are you to society, really? You made it. You good with that? You don't care about helping nobody? I think there's a heart problem.
Yeah.
If you don't care about helping somebody, that, you know what I mean, I think you need to help the one always standing next to you, to always try to help somebody. I think that's a must in America, to start with the drugs with the kids. Like Brandon said earlier, is meet them right where they're at. Is don't try to change them. Just meet them where they're at. Be friends with them. Talk to them. Love them.
Yeah.
Love them right where they're at. And they'll start talking to you.
Yeah.
And as they start figuring out, man, why don't you you don't want one of these? You don't want to do this? Nah, bro, I'm good. I'm not used to do that. I ain't mad at you. I just I don't live there no more.
Yeah.
Probably next question gonna be like, why not?
Yeah. How'd you get out?
Yeah.
I remember there was a pastor we had growing up that took all the problem kids at the youth group, which was me and some of my friends, and we all went off to Crowder's Mountain, and he preached, and he got every one of us to quit smoking cigarettes. And how he did it was he let us smoke cigarettes. He said, you can smoke, I just don't want to see it if you can go over there, because it hurts me that you're hurting yourself, but I'm not going to get you in trouble. And he got to us, and after being with him for like 3 days, we all quit smoking. It didn't stick. but
it catches.
He kept being our pastor. So he was like they had a bunch of pastors come in and take different groups of kids. My pastor I didn't actually enjoy, but if he had been a pastor, I probably would have stayed with it a lot longer and got more involved. But his acceptance was what we wanted. We caught you smoking, we're going to your parents, and your parents are going to ground you and you're in trouble. It was, hey, you do what you want to do, I just don't want to see it because it hurts you.
So that's good, because then what he done truly was make you self-conscious.
Yeah.
You're like, man, then you almost felt like you're letting him down.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted you to see, and that's what he wanted you to see as the Father's love. You know what I mean? That's what, like, man, the Lord sees you. You know, even when we're by ourselves, He still sees us. You know what I mean? And I think that's what that pastor was doing. I don't know who it was. I shout out to him. That was good stuff there.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't remember what church it was. Somewhere in Belmont.
Yeah, that's good. That's real good.
We'll probably wrap this thing up, and then you're going to go take your
I
granny
gotta
to
take
dinner.
Granny to dinner.
I got to go cook dinner for my wife.
Amen. I appreciate y'all having me. Appreciate you catch up, man.
Powerful story, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing it.
No doubt.
Yeah, man.
Thank y'all for having me. Thank you for having me.
All right, peace out.
Peace out.
All right, Peace Nicks. Thanks for listening. Once again, if you like what we're doing here at the Peace on Drugs podcast, go to thepeaceondrugs.com/subscribe. Subscribe to our newsletter. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter at the Peace on Drugs. And if you really like what we're doing, do us a favor, go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating. Help us get that little boost, get this mission going. Thank you for supporting it. We're coming to you from Gastonia, North Carolina this week. Be heading back to Florida pretty soon. So again, thanks for listening, and peace out.